Be role models. Come on, celebrities. Good morning, mushrooms, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers, sisters, mothers, misters, and to all my cousins out there around the world. It's time to plug in. Let's get the train chugging. And China's early COVID chaos, as you know from this show and past episodes, chaos actually comes from ancient Greek and it means the yawning chasm. Yawning. Very open, wide, and it implies deep as well. And a chasm is a fissure or a crack that appears in the ground. Often happens after an earthquake in some places, or it could be like the ones that you see in glaciers, the crevasse, yeah? But what it implies is in the yawning chasm or the void, an absence of rules, regulations, or anything that's controlling things. So anything can happen. But, yes, China's early COVID chaos, apparently a CNN exclusive. Let's learn more in the caption below, huh? The country took weeks to diagnose new cases and underreported numbers, which is being shown by leaked documents. Now, this is a simple thing here. It takes time to do things. It takes me 20 minutes to get to work in good conditions, and then it takes me an hour to get home. It takes time and any expression of time to do things. Ta-da! Here we have underreported numbers, the prefix under meaning not enough, right? And so they were reporting numbers that were smaller than the actual reality, just like you can often underestimate how long it takes to do something. Yes, you thought it would take 20 minutes, but then it actually took an hour to underreport if something was underestimated. Teachers are often underpaid. That's right. And these documents were leaked. When we're talking about leaks, typically you've got maybe, let's say, a gas tank or maybe a water bottle. Oh, that's it. We'll stick with a water bottle. A water bottle, the cap is not screwed on tight enough, and so in your backpack moving around, some of the water escapes from that container. The water leaks out. However, information and documents can also leak out. That means to escape their container and enter the general public. Yes, and so documents can leak, informations can leak, secrets can leak out to the public where they can be seen and or known. Nice figurative use. And we've got, well, here, leaked, the past tense of the verb, is being used as an adjective to describe said documents, but in the next headline, we see it as a noun. The China document leak. There was a leak which leaked documents, and it was a leak, and it shows a flawed pandemic response. If something was flawed, that means it's imperfect. It wasn't perfect. There were problems. Now, their virus response has been touted or had been touted as very, very effective and very quick, immediate, etc. However, apparently it was not perfect. It was flawed. There was an imperfection. They made mistakes. Guess what? They're human. These things happen, especially when you don't know what you're doing. Either way, I guess it does seem that their response has been better than that of much of the West, for example, in the United States, where cases are continuing to soar and deaths are mounting. We're going to learn more about this in the upcoming headlines, so let's just keep it rolling. A lot of meat on the bones today. Moving on. The U.S. healthcare system is literally, not figuratively, I was literally starving. No, you weren't. You were very hungry. You were not starving to death. Here, literally is used literally in the way that it is intended, meaning for real, yo. It's literally at the breaking point. If you put so much pressure or weight on something, eventually it will snap, it will break, and the system is going to break down as hospitals are running out of space. If you're running out of something, there is none left. Yes, just like in the early stages of the pandemic, we saw people buying all sorts of stuff and the stores ran out of toilet paper, and I'm running out of patience reporting on this nonsense. But, well, that's the world in which we live. Let's move on. The fates of millions of Americans rest on Biden's economic team. And, well, you could say figuratively, they rest on his shoulders. And I'm not saying they're taking a nap. They got their hands behind their head and their feet up sipping a cocktail. They're not resting and relaxing. To rest in this case means they are placed and they are sitting there. And so the figurative weight and responsibility of the responsibility for the lives, the futures of millions of Americans is now sitting or resting on Biden's economic team, on his shoulders, because, well, as we've seen, Trump has basically abdicated. All he's doing now is trying to create more problems for Biden and everyone else who's going to come after him. The fate is your future, your destiny, but especially the things that will happen to you. And when we're talking about fates, it's usually implying the negative things. Unfortunately, it seems as though millions of people's fates are sealed. Let's move on. If you remember, back in the springtime, I think it was, a huge U.S. Navy warship caught on fire in San Diego Harbor, I believe it was. Well, apparently they have deemed that it is not repairable or worth repairing, and so they're going to deconstruct it. They're going to take it apart. They're going to break it down and sell off the components. Now, not to me or you, but a lot of that steel can then be recycled into other things, and so this big boat will be broken down and sold for scrap. Scraps are the leftover pieces after something is taken apart, or maybe the things that you don't eat on your plate, those little scraps of food. You might feed bits of meat to your dog, etc. Those are the scraps. Figuratively, we can also use it to scrap a plan, meaning to get rid of it and throw it away. And that's essentially what they're doing with the boat, but they're probably going to recycle a whole bunch of the stuff. I hope. It's a big boat. Let's move on. Oh, look at that. It took days. It took days for a fire. Sorry there. Didn't see you there, guys. I was all immersed in the headlines and had tunnel vision going on. Scrappy, like Scrappy-Doo, Scooby-Doo's little puppy friend. Well, he gets his name. If you are scrappy, it means that you are tenacious and you try really hard, and no matter... in the face of obstacles, in the face of adversity, you keep clawing your way forward and implying you're surviving on the scraps of others, things that have been left behind, and yet still managing to succeed or at least survive and make do. And that's where the word scrappy, the adjective scrappy, comes from, and Scrappy-Doo. He wasn't big, but remember, he was powerful. And so he was able to... do stuff. He was like a fighter or something, wasn't it? Yeah, and so like maybe some little guy who fights bigger guys. He's not as big as them, but he's scrappy. He's tenacious. He'll claw their eyes out, or whatever. Okay. I hope that satiates you. I hope that appeases your desire for explanation. All right, once again, it took time, it took days for a fire to hinder the Navy's Pacific Fleet for years to come. Last week we had to hamper progress, or here we've got to hinder progress. And that's something that is holding you back or has set you back from moving forward and making that figurative progress. It's going to hinder the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet's ability to patrol and control the, Pacific. Which is funny because technically Pacific means it's related to peace, and we're talking about warships. Whatever. I hope the irony is not lost on you. But to hinder, to hamper, to prevent obstacles and to hold back progress. Much like a lack of sleep often hinders this broadcast. All right, moving on. A Trump attorney issues a call for violence against the truth-telling former election cybersecurity official. That's a mouthful. This guy publicly requested that the Krebs, I believe his name is, the election cybersecurity official who said that there was no problem with the voting machines and this was one of the most secure elections in history, going against what Trump is claiming, and some Trump attorney, that's his official lawyer, um, publicly requested that this person be dragged out into the street at sunrise and shot. Now, people like me, people like you can make these sort of jokes. However, we probably still shouldn't. But an official attorney working for the president should not be afforded the luxury of making such types of jokes, assuming that it was a joke, especially because you've got so many basically very ardent supporters of the president who are in possession of many firearms and have an inkling or tendency towards violence. Yeah, these are, even if it was a joke, which they love to claim, these are dangerous jokes, and they should not, people in these positions of power should not be afforded the opportunity to make said jokes. All right, I'm repeating myself. Let's move on. Yeah, just some simple grammar and vocabulary too. Banks are refusing to deal with Hong Kong's leader, to refuse to do something. That's it. No, you will not do it. Yeah? You're saying no. But to deal with a problem is to address a problem or issue or situation, and it means to take the appropriate action so as to improve the results. The interesting or funny part here is because it's banks, and banks do business, and when you do business, you're making deals. Let's shake on the deal, right? And so deal with, as a phrasal verb, is just talking about taking the appropriate actions, but because they're businessmen, that's the headline writers having a little bit of fun with the double meaning of the word there. Yeah? Doing business, but also fixing a situation. All right, let's keep it going. Australia demands that China deletes falsified image of a soldier threatening a child. Apparently, yes, this was a doctored image in which a soldier is threatening a child. Apparently, it was not real, and it was falsified. Now, as language learners out there, everybody knows one of the most common exercises is true versus false. However, we can take false as an adjective, meaning not true or fake, and turn it into a verb, meaning to fake something, false-ify. To false-ify. Moving on. Experts are skeptical of claims that Iranian nuclear scientist was targeted, past simple passive, by whom? We don't know. In the remote control assassination. Apparently, supposedly, the bomb was detonated by remote control, and claims are being made there was also a remote controlled machine gun that did the shooting. So there were no actual live people involved in this assassination. That's some Mission Impossible kind of stuff. Quite literally, in Mission Impossible 3, they had remote controlled machine guns. Why didn't they use fake instead of falsify? Well, here in falsify is the past tense used as an adjective, falsified image, because I think the reason that they use falsified instead of fake here, because there's this proliferation and oversaturation of the word fake right now. Fake news, and people are starting to turn against the idea of fake, meaning that it in and of itself is fake. And so by using falsified, it also does seem a little bit more formal. And the idea that it was done maybe extra intentionally, I don't know. Those are my 2 cents. To be skeptical of something means that you doubt the truth of it. It might be fake news. It might be stories that are just created or concocted to achieve a particular end, manipulating the hearts and minds of people, inciting them to violence, sparking outrage. To continue regurgitating vocabulary, feeding you like baby birds. Sorry, that's a terrible visual. Let's keep it moving. Georgia GOP officials are rebuffing Trump, to rebuff, to rebuke. That's basically to say no and to criticize him. Trump is making accusations against him, and they're saying, whatever, dog. To rebuff, to rebuke, to criticize, and deny, basically. Yeah. Moving on. Supreme Court conservatives are hinting at ducking the ruling on the legality of the Trump census plan. Whew, without getting into too much of the actual content itself, let's just look at the language used in the headline. To hint at something means that you're not coming out and saying it directly. You're alluding to the fact, you're like, well, this is a particular course of action that could be done. Wink, wink, yeah. And so you're not saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go against that. Just giving little, planting seeds of sowing seeds of doubt or seeds of figurative seeds, obviously, at ducking the ruling on the legality of blah, blah, blah. If you're ducking something, we're not talking about quack, quack, quack. We're not talking about the birds, the semi-aquatic birds, but to duck, if somebody throws something at you, and at the last moment you see it, you duck out of the way to dodge it, to avoid it. And so if they're ducking if they're ducking a judge's ruling or a judge's decree, they're avoiding it and they're trying to get around it. So, which means that they're not going to comply with whatever this legal ruling from court was, because, well, if you don't like if you don't like what the judge says, they must be part of the deep state too. All right. Melania Trump's White House holiday decor spotlights essential workers. Yet, once again, the official beginning of the Christmas season now that we have passed Thanksgiving. And so, time to start decorating. We'll be doing the same downstairs later today to spotlight something. Just like if on the stage there's the one light that comes down on the main character, illuminating just them. That is the spotlight. And so it's spotlighting, it's highlighting, it's emphasizing and drawing your attention to, well, these essential workers, delivery people, restaurant workers, supermarket workers, not to mention doctors and nurses and all of these other people who have been tenaciously keeping our civilization moving during this pandemic. It's interesting. Is she trying to polish up their public image a little bit? I don't know, but they don't seem to have given much of a hoot about workers in general or essential workers through much of this pandemic, especially through their stuck in making this. The Supreme Court's stuck in making the decision. Well, they can't pass the buck. They can't just shuffle it off to somebody else. They are the highest court. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. They're going to have to say something. But yeah, to spotlight, to draw attention to highlight, to emphasize. Yeah, because those essential workers deserve a little bit of clap for keeping the wheels turning. All right, moving on. A Formula One driver was disgusted and disappointed with Formula One as an organization for broadcasting, or pro tip, having broadcasted this fatal crash. And so, yes, I'm not getting into the disgusted and disappointed. Most of you know that, but it's just a little reminder with prepositions, especially the double stacking. Disgusted and disappointed with someone for doing or having done, especially if we're talking about the past. Yeah? All right, let's go. Unfortunately, there's been 11 unprovoked attacks in 1 month, and they are rocking the city. They're rattling the city. They're upsetting, upending, and disturbing the city. Forgot to highlight the rock there. Just like means to shake. Yeah, and if somebody shakes you, if you are shaken technically, but people say shook. Thank you, Mob Deep. That means you are disturbed. Because there have been 11 attacks that were unprovoked. The person who was the victim of the attack did nothing to cause the attack. They were just some innocent passerby or bystander when then somebody attacked them. Unfortunate. Condolences to all the victims out there. Moving on. Speaking of, well, these aren't victims, but in any way, shape, or form, celebrities are mingling without masks at a party for Lil Wayne's daughter. To mingle means to mix, and in a social setting, it means to move amongst other people in a social fashion, making small talk, conversing. Ha ha ha! We say rubbing elbows or rubbing shoulders with other people, and to be doing that without masks, as you know, is highly irresponsible. Um, Come on, Lil Wayne and daughter, you can do better. Be role models. Come on, celebrities. Moving on. Here's how the media should cover COVID in 2021. Well, COVID has caught a lot of coverage this year, but to cover, just like the cover of a magazine goes over the entire thing, if you're covering something, now that doesn't actually work. This just means to talk about something, to talk about all the aspects of it. The media covers everything that goes on in the world, on the globe, etc. Yeah, kind of got lost there. Yes, and I'll be putting on my ski mask and going to work later to... No. Whatever. Moving on. Denmark is to dig up thousands of dead mink. Ooh, we got some nice alliteration. Denmark, dig up dead mink. Yes, these mink, which are raised, which are farmed for their furs to make jackets and so on, like so many other mammals, have proven to be a disease vector, and so they had to be slaughtered for carrying a mutation of the COVID-19. And, well, now apparently they killed them and buried them for safety, but now scientists want to do some research on those dead mink, and so Denmark has to dig them up. Bonus points to you out there for a more formal word for digging up from last week's broadcast. It has to do with the word or the name of our planet. 3, 2, 1. That's right. They are unearthing thousands of dead mink. Dig up is better. Stick with the phrasal verb. Ta-da! Oh, sorry. I didn't wait for the lag. My apologies. But kudos to you, Nedim. An Afghan major who helped save a U.S. pilot is begging the Pentagon to protect him and his family from probably the Taliban or whoever he saved the pilot from. This has been highlighted and spotlighted on CNN. The crazy amount of people in Iraq and Afghanistan who have dedicated their lives to helping U.S. and other allied forces in the fight against terrorism are then just often left behind and put at risk in their native populations when some of these insurgent groups regain control, and so they are persecuted and often killed. And although they ask for asylum in the United States or other Western countries, very little is done to help them. It is tragic and really an embarrassment to our system. We implore these people to help us, and then we just abandon them when we decide to walk away. That is morally wrong and broken, but to beg, to plead, please, 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 please. Other people, if you're talking to God and you're begging God, they call that praying. Moving on. Yay! Simple dependent preposition here, but NBC apologizes for a Selena Gomez kidney transplant joke on the Saved by the Bell reboot. Now, I don't know about you kids out there, but I grew up watching Saved by the Bell on Saturday mornings, and I was excited to hear that they were going to start the show up again. Probably wasn't going to watch it, but just for the sake of it, I was happy that they were doing it. To boot something up, you probably know it from your computers, yes? And they have boot drives, and then if you need to switch it off and then turn it on again, that is to reboot, because like any machine that doesn't work, we kick it with our boot, right? Just use that to remember it if you need to. But to apologize for the terrible thing is after waiting 20-some years for them to restart the show, they come right out making ridiculous jokes. You think in 20 years they could have written some better material that's not insensitive and offensive to millions of people. Moving on. Britain's final Brexit choice could prolong the worst recession in 300 years. We had this on the show last week as well, but I just wanted to re-emphasize the idea that prolong, it's basically the same as extend. However, we use prolong for negative things most of the time. You wouldn't say, I'm going to prolong my holiday. No, I'm going to extend my holiday. However, our layover in Heathrow, and nobody likes layovers in Heathrow, was prolonged by a terrible storm, and we had to sit there for 12 hours. Yeah, to make something longer in time. Moving on. More emissions means higher prices. Food brands want you to know their climate impact. Yes, because packaging and transportation all have an impact on the climate. And when you hit something, it has an effect on it. And so an impact in this case has nothing to do with hitting, but it means having an effect on something. And yes, that transportation of products from field or factory to the marketplace where consumers can purchase it, well, that comes with a price, which is typically burning petrol and contributing to the greenhouse gases and climate change. And yes, those emissions, that's the exhaust from the trucks, not to mention all of the other things that go into it, like the emissions from harvesting products, the emissions from the energy used to process and package the products. Ad infinitum, ad nauseum, the world is going to end. Sorry. It's Tuesday morning. It's time to be dark, isn't it? All right. Ooh, what is that? Disinter and exhume. You're still stuck on the dig up. That's absolutely fine. A nice use of the phrasal verb to be stuck on something. Just like a sticker, it's difficult to remove it. And he is stuck to this idea, or stuck on, in a more figurative fashion, on the idea of digging things up. Much like dogs and bones. Well, actually, they usually bury the bones and then forget where. But why Israel is using an AI system to monitor a Tel Aviv beach. I don't know why they're monitoring a Tel Aviv beach, but just like your computer has a monitor that allows you to look at what's going on and control what's going on inside the magical machine which you are attempting to work with, to monitor, to watch, and to supervise. And so they are monitoring a beach. They're probably looking for topless sunbathers. I could be wrong. Moving on. George Clooney cuts his own hair because, well, there's some things money can't buy that are priceless. And apparently his wife isn't doing it for him, but he cuts his own hair with a device attached to a vacuum cleaner. Basically, an homemade improvised version of a Flowbee, if you remember those old infomercials late at night for cutting your hair. Why is this news? I don't know. Why am I commenting on it? Because his own. Yes, and so you cut your own hair. My wife will be cutting my hair hopefully soon, although I'm the one who keeps putting it off. And so nobody's fault except for my own. Ooh, brings it full circle. It was a long walk, but yes, the possessive pronoun here followed by own, meaning that you're doing it for yourself. There we go. I knew there was some sort of nuggets of something in there. Moving on, as we have on the show all the time, setting records, breaking records, and I just wanted to point out and draw attention to and highlight, if not spotlight, the Blackish star Marsai Martin, who is 16, has set a record for the youngest Hollywood executive producer. Wow, bravo, well done, kudos to you, I salute you, Marsai Martin. She has set a record for being the youngest executive producer at 16 years old. What are you doing with your life? She's got me beat. Moving on. Something I've not seen before, unprecedented, when Barca humiliated Real Madrid. Yep, I don't follow football news or anything, but to humiliate someone is to make them feel ashamed and extremely embarrassed. I guess Barca crushed them and beat them very badly, not physically, but in the game of football, outscoring them to win, and probably by a large margin or in a dramatic fashion. I don't know if this is old news or new news. However, it was in the headlines this morning. And, yeah. Don't humiliate people. It's not nice. Don't run up the score. Be polite. Moving on. We had it last week as well. looking back at Diego Maradona, who recently passed away, he was a tormented genius. He was suffering from some sort of internal demons. He was tortured and suffering, and yeah, that's what tormented means. Ta-da! And Naples is mourning Diego Maradona. When you feel that deep, deep sadness or grief, typically after somebody has passed away, you mourn them. And this, in this case, specifically is taking steps to demonstrate or publicly show their feelings of sadness and grief as a tribute to the great. Oh, speaking of tributes, keep it rolling. One of the other all-time greats, a household name that I grew up with, even in the United States where their professional football was not a big thing. Real football, not American football, obviously, but everyone knows who Pele and Maradona were. There was a time in the United States where the name Maradona actually meant cool. Just like you'd say rad or cool, you'd be like, yo, dog, that's Maradona. Interesting, huh? But so we will play football together in heaven, says Pele, in a tribute to Diego Maradona. And a tribute is an action, a speech, or a gift intended to show love, respect, and appreciation for a person's accomplishments during their lifetime. The person doesn't have to be dead, but all too often tributes are paid after they pass away, and the people never get to really, I don't know, feel that appreciation in their lifetime, sadly. All right, the story I had to share, not I, this is the headline I'm reading. The story I had to share after Kyle Rittenhouse posted his $2 million bail. Bail is that temporary release before court. You have to pay money, saying, I promise I will come back to court to face the charges that have been put against me. It's just to post bail or to pay bail. Yes, and this 18-year-old kid, I believe he was, obviously didn't have $2 million, but that means lots and lots of white people out there were giving money to him so that way he didn't have to wait for his court hearing in jail. He didn't have to wait in jail. He could just get out and run around. Now, this is disgusting because, yes, very often people, especially people of color, are held in prison or in jail awaiting their trial, even though they have not yet been found guilty or even tried. They have to spend sometimes months in jail, even if they are not a criminal, just waiting to see if they are a criminal. Whereas this kid who shot down 2 people with an illegally purchased assault rifle, people are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh no, it's a shame that you'd have to sit in there, as opposed to somebody like the author of the story who got arrested and held in jail for having been suspected of stealing $2.46 worth of batteries. Yep, the state of presumed innocence and race relations in the United States could be better. It's abysmal. Beware! Trump's last-ditch efforts on immigration. Beware means use caution, danger ahead, whereas be aware of, 3 words, be aware of just means know about something. But beware, just like the sign in front of a house, it says beware dog. It will attack you if you cross the fence into the property in an unwanted fashion. Trespassing. And last-ditch efforts. This comes back, I had reported before that it comes from an English king, but I was reading this morning and it was like 1690, William of Orange, talking about last-ditch effort to stop the French invaders. A ditch is like a trench, however usually used for excess water to run off of an agricultural field, and much of the countryside was agricultural, and they didn't have time to dig trenches like in World War I. And so even if you are retreating and it's looking bleak and there's no hope of success, you will fight down to that last ditch and that last final hope to achieve whatever your goal is. And for Trump, it's to stop immigration. last ditch effort means that basically all hope is lost, but you've got one last prayer to achieve whatever it is that you want. Coming back from the 1690s in William of Orange, so says this morning's research. Moving on to a very colorful phrase. The Trump transition show is jumping the shark. This goes back to, a 1977 episode of Happy Days in which Fonzie is water skiing behind a boat and then jumps over a shark on his water skis. And so originally it was taken to mean when a show does something absolutely crazy for comedic value. However, in the modern day usage, it usually is used to indicate that they have run out of plot or story. The quality of something is becoming more and more inferior, and so they're doing ridiculous things so as to try and redeem their public image. And so the transition show is jumping the shark, doing crazy, crazy stuff because they have nothing else to do, because they are incompetent and they have no other material to work with. And so, jumping the shark, it's just a phrase that you hear from time to time. Moving on. Oh my, yes, moving on. Running long again today. The Justice Department is rushing to, they are in a hurry to do something. Typically, we don't use the verb hurry as a verb unless you're giving it as an imperative. Hurry up! If you are in a hurry, you are rushing to do something. And yes, to expand or increase execution methods, to diversify, branch out, guys. Let's go back and bring back the guillotine, why don't we? Like firing squads, that's when the soldiers stand up to shoot people, to execute them for federal death row inmates. Death row are the people standing in a row waiting to be killed, because usually they've been found guilty of murder or something like that. The inmates are the prisoners. These are the death row, they're the ones who have been sentenced to death, and we currently use lethal injection. We've also hung people, we've had firing squads, we've had the electric chair. There are any number of ways of killing people. However, apparently Trump, in another last-ditch effort to muddy the waters of the American judicial and just social scene, is now trying to increase more execution methods. And why don't we just bring back the guillotine, or tie people down over anthills, or let the birds pick them clean live? Huh? Yeah. Moving on. Senior leadership team charged with planning Biden inauguration has been unveiled. They have unveiled or made public the inauguration, the senior leadership team which is planning his inauguration. Who cares? Why is this news? I don't care who's planning his party of being sworn in as president. That's not important to me. However, it's just nice to see charged with something other than a crime. In this case, charged with means given the responsibility for. Just like if you are the boss at your company or somewhere, you are in charge of the operations of the company. They are charged with, they are given the responsibility for planning his inauguration. And that inauguration is when the big official ceremony where he puts his hand on a book and raises his other hand and says, I promise, the holy heavenly promise to do my job, etc., etc. Speaking of which, that brings us to the exact next piece of vocabulary. However, about somebody else. When Biden is being sworn in at his inauguration, well, now we've got former astronaut Mark Kelly. He's going to be sworn in as a U.S. Senator today or yesterday. Who knows? Because the headlines in Europe are off. But to be sworn in, yes, it's that promise to do your job, your new job that you are entering, to promise to do it in the best way possible, with some special words, incantations, etc. So, whoo boy, I knew it was going to be a big one today. Look at that. It is pretty long, but remember, it's not about how long it is, it's about the quality within and how many words are in there. But that's that. Let's just take us back to the beach. However, the beach seems to have disappeared. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm sorry I was a little bit too vocal today, but for English Otherwise, that was breaking down the news. I will be on again tonight for another crossword, so come practice your phrasal verbs and test your noodle, put your noodle to use, test your metal, and see if you can't help us out. You may have mentioned this, however, I would like, why is bail posted instead of paid? That's a very good question, because you don't mail it through the post. I think, I don't know. I'm gonna look that up. Maybe because it was like an amount of money, like a bag of coins, and you tied it to the fence post or something, and it stayed there until the person came back. I don't know. Gonna look that up actually right now. And so everybody out there, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in approximately 11 hours from now. Much love and joy. Hasta la vista. Bye bye. Yeah, stop the stream.